Here's some news you might have missed on the Bible Forum this week. The Bible tells us that, and this is Matthew chapter 24, it says, "As it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be at the coming of the Son of Man." Perhaps the most significant event in Noah's day was what caused the destruction of the entire world by water, commonly referred to as Noah's flood. The Bible tells us in the days of Noah that it rained 40 days and 40 nights, and consequently, the flooding waters reached over the highest mountains. But the scientific community scoffs at stuff like that. They say the math doesn't add up. It makes this event nothing more than an ancient myth. Scientists say not enough water can fall from the air, from the clouds, in 40 days and 40 nights to cover one mountain, let alone all the mountains of the world. The truth is that the Bible clearly states that the rain was not the primary reason for all the flooding. In fact, the scripture states that on that day all the fountains of the great deep burst open, and then it began to rain. This makes the direct cause something called a geographic pole shift, which apparently occurred thousands of years ago. Geographic shifts are ones in which the entire planet is suddenly and dramatically moved from its axis, causing untold devastation on Earth's surface. The Old Testament doesn't use this modern day term of pole shifting when describing the Great Flood. However, it does provide enough detail about the Earth before and after the event to prove to us that an axial pole shift did occur. In Genesis chapter 2, we read how that in the early days of man it never rained upon the earth, and that the entire surface was watered from a mist that went up from it. There were no seasons, no storms. The entire planet would have existed at a temperate equilibrium with tropical vegetation, including at what we call our north and south poles. In fact, petrified tropical trees have been discovered under the ice in Antarctica, proving that statement. Scientifically, the only way to achieve this temperate paradise would be if the geographic axis of the Earth was parallel to that of the Sun, or in other words, at 0 degrees. Today, the Earth's axis sits at 23.5 degrees, which creates frozen poles, seasons, rain, violent storms because of the uneven heating and freezing on the planet. We have all of our weather systems. So we go back to the fountains of the deep explained in Genesis, and we see quite simply the fountains of the deep were oceans themselves, which make up about 71% of the Earth's surface. Oceans of the Earth have an average depth of about 2.28 miles, whereas the Earth's dry land has an average height of less than a half a mile. Covering the Earth's surface with water would be no problem, but covering the mountains might be. Have you ever heard of the Atlantic Ridge? Do you have Google Earth on your computer? You can see it. It would also account for the shifting. When the Earth shifted, there were great cataclysmic events to the crust, and there were these upthrusts and the fissures that created by the shift, and water would flow out of those in a very violent way. The Bible says it spewed water up into the air to a huge altitude. It would violently erode the surface of the planet, and the water would flow back and forth, covering mountain ranges with the force of 1,000 pounds per square inch. Who knew? God did. And he caused it to be written down.